Just pull yourself together, Doug. Do you want to talk about it? No, not really. My wife Connie just returned from a weekend with her lover. It started 6 months ago. At first, she used the excuse that she was going to spend time with her mother, but in the last few months, she just left without any explanation. I was too trusting, so it took me quite a while to understand what was happening. Calvin Bostic was my wife's boyfriend before I met her. After working together for several years, he decided to join the Air Force and left Connie. I picked her up, married her, and we had 2 children. For 23 years, life was wonderful, and then everything went downhill. Our son Robert got a job at the post office in Baltimore, and our daughter Dawn got married and moved to Allentown. I expected life without the kids to be better, but I was wrong. I work for my Uncle Simon as a gravel truck driver. It's a tough job, but it pays well. We drive 2 late-model cars, and we have no credit card debt. We were planning to do some minor renovations on the house. When things got tense at home, I decided to do a little investigating. Connie's mother lived in Pottsville, but Connie stayed with Calvin in Frackville. Frackville isn't that big, so I had no trouble finding his place. It was a small rental apartment in the old part of town. I stopped and talked with my mother-in-law and found out that Connie hadn't been around for weeks, and when she did drop by, it was only for an hour or so. "When were you going to tell me about your weekends with Calvin?" Connie set down her travel bag and plopped onto the couch. I couldn't tell if she felt relieved or annoyed. Calvin left the Air Force last March and rented a house in Frackville. He got my phone number from my sister, and we started meeting up to reminisce about old times. All weekend? Doug, Calvin and I were lovers long before you and I got married. We have a connection. There's a compatibility and intimacy between us that I never had with you. It just feels natural to be with him. So you're saying you two are soulmates? Yes. I know it sounds cliché, but it's true. What about us? What kind of relationship did we have for 23 years? I'm sorry, Doug. We all have to make choices in life. When you can't get what you want, you have to choose an alternative. When Calvin left, you were my alternative. 23 years and 2 kids, and I was just an alternative? Damn it, Doug. Don't be so dramatic. I was a good wife and mother. Now I want to live a little for myself. There was silence for a few moments. Does he know you're married? Yes, and he understands. He knows he did the wrong thing by leaving like that and regrets it. He understands that marrying you was something I had to do, and he forgives me for it. What? He forgives you for marrying me? Are you insane? Doug, relax. Why are you getting so upset? I'm just a little curious, Connie. Why don't you just move in with him? He has legal problems right now. His ex-wife filed for divorce and is demanding 48% of his Air Force pension. He thinks it would be better if we kept our relationship a secret. Is he working? He's still in a transitional period. There aren't many specialists in ground equipment in this area, and he wants to stay here. So, Connie, what are your plans? I don't know. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I watched as my wife picked up her travel bag and headed to the bedroom. I spent the night in the living room, in the recliner. On Monday morning, after Connie left for work, I finalized everything. I started with the bank and insurance. Closing the accounts and canceling the insurance policies significantly increased my cash flow. I had a pre-approved home improvement loan for $30,000. My '57 Chevrolet brought me nearly $20,000. I took another ride on my Harley Fat Boy. I paid the penalty and cashed in my savings. There were 4 Krugerrands in the safety deposit box. Unfortunately, Uncle Simon didn't have a pension plan I could rely on. I had planned a surprise 6-month cruise for our 25th wedding anniversary. Connie didn't know that I had been saving for it for 6 years. This brought me another $30,000. I had no trouble finding a buyer for my tools. I cashed in my Krugerrands. The public housing project in Riverside looked the same as it did 25 years ago. However, Hector Cordetti looked different. Hector and I grew up together. His mother was Dominican and his father was Italian. He had become bigger, hairier, and uglier than I remembered. It was a wonderful reunion. We finished off a pack of beer, and I gave him a photo and all the information I had on Calvin Bostic. His eyes lit up when I placed the documents and the keys to the fat boy in front of him. "Doug, this is too much. You don't have to ask me for a favor. We know each other too well. I can do anything you want for free. It's not about that. I'm leaving town, and I need a place to store this. You were the first person I thought of. Use it, take care of it, and if it's still with you when I return, you can give it back to me. In the meantime, if you need money or anything else, just sell the damn thing. Make it easy on yourself. All right. I'll rough this guy up a bit and send him to the hospital." "Is that all? What if he doesn't get the message? I'd suggest waiting a couple of months, and if he's still seeing Connie, visit him again. After 2 trips to the emergency room, he should get the point. The arrogant son of a bitch really needs an attitude adjustment. When do you want this done? Wait about 2 weeks. And after that? I'll be gone for a long time. No phone, no mail, no contact. Maybe I'll send you a Christmas card. It's a good thing we finished the beer, or I'd be here all night." Connie wasn't home when I got there. I planned to travel light because I'd have housing issues in the future. Connie fulfilled her heart's desire, and I was going to fulfill mine, a 26-foot Nordic tugboat. Every man has dreams or aspirations. My plan was quite simple, but it had remained unattainable until now. I could never convince her to live on a yacht. Now I didn't have to worry about that. The hardest part was finding something I could afford and live on. The internet is a great place to shop. When I arrived, my son Robert had just returned from work. He seemed surprised to see me, so I assumed he hadn't spoken to his mother in a while. I briefly outlined the situation for him, trying not to criticize Connie, but I told him everything. He was, of course, upset but understanding. Robert agreed to keep a few things for me while I traveled, such as my birth certificate and my military discharge papers. He also agreed to be my contact person in case I needed anything. I transferred the truck title to him and told him where to pick it up in Annapolis. He was still single, but he had a steady girlfriend who he said might become his wife. I spent the night at his place, and in the morning, we both left at the same time. I found it amusing that my phone had been on all this time, but my wife still hadn't called me. An hour later, I was having breakfast in Annapolis before heading to the marina. We took care of business all morning. In the afternoon, I conducted a full inspection of all operational and safety systems. I was glad I had previously received a certificate from the Coast Guard. Using the Yanmar maintenance manual and a service specialist, I was able to compile a list of spare parts and additional tools that I might need. I didn't intend to become a qualified marine mechanic. I just wanted to know enough to contact the nearest service center if necessary. I have a complete set of ICW charts, as well as lists of all the marinas on the East Coast and in the Gulf of Mexico. One set is for my e-reader and another in a spiral-bound book. The staff at the marine office were more than happy to help me set up my new kitchen and pantry. One of the small indulgences I allowed myself was purchasing a set of solar panels and a complete set of LCD lighting for the yacht. I felt I could work on this during my leisure time on slow days. Everything went smoothly. That evening, Robert's girlfriend drove him to the marina. I gave them a tour of the yacht, and we had dinner together. He drove home in the truck. I was free. Early the next morning, I quietly left the marina with 350 liters of fuel and 220 liters of water. I had no plan or destination. My money would last me a year if I didn't spend it on fuel. Any serious mechanical failure would probably break me. I had no choice but to move forward and hope for the best. For the next 2 weeks, I got acquainted with my new toy. I figured out how to achieve minimal fuel consumption and became familiar with the instruments and electronics. Most marinas and coastal restaurants had free Wi-Fi. I downloaded a bunch of books onto my e-reader and took several more Coast Guard courses, including safety and weather conditions. I made a note to set up an onboard internet system in the future. I wasn't heading anywhere in particular, but I gradually realized I was moving south. The time to embark on my journey was approaching. I was a bit anxious but also cautiously optimistic. I had no experience, but I had nothing to lose. Go for it. I quickly realized that eating at marina restaurants or coastal diners would significantly impact my readiness to travel. I decided to learn some cooking tricks and techniques for onboard meals. I downloaded a few more books. At one point in the journey, it seemed like I might run into problems with my limited fuel supply. I grabbed a collapsible fuel tank just in case I needed it. I also restocked the pantry. I connected my wonderful solar panel system to a small lawnmower battery, which I hid in a secret compartment. This provided LCD lighting throughout the boat and even gave me a neat little charging station for my phone and e-reader. I was leaving the Honga River, heading towards Bloodsworth Island, when I noticed a young woman desperately waving her arms. She was standing at the stern of a large white yacht that appeared to be grounded near a brush-covered shoreline. In the fading daylight, only the back of the yacht was visible. As I got closer, I saw it was a large Chris-Craft yacht. Despite its awkward position, it seemed to be in pristine condition. There were no lights on or any signs of life, except for the woman waving her arms. For a moment, I forgot about her, being more interested in the yacht. "Hello. Can you help me?" She wasn't as young as I initially thought. She was probably in her 30s, wearing something like a cocktail dress. "Do you want me to call for help on the radio?" "Oh my God, no. Whatever you do, don't call anyone. Can I give you a ride somewhere?" By this time, my tug had come alongside the Chris-Craft. I shut off the engine. "Yes, in a minute, but first I need to do something." "Are you out of fuel?" "Maybe. I don't know. It just stopped." "Where were you heading?" "Nowhere in particular." "Why all the questions?" "Just curious." "What do you need to do?" "Do you have any gasoline?" "Gasoline won't help you. It runs on diesel." "I know that. Do you have gasoline or not?" I grabbed a 10-liter can of gasoline from the rear storage and handed it to her over the railing. She disappeared to the front of the boat and returned a few seconds later. Now I had a pretty good idea of what she was going to do, so I quietly loosened the mooring line. She handed back the empty can and a set of flares that had been at the helm. Holding onto the railing, she climbed over and jumped onto the tug. "Permission to come aboard, sir?" I couldn't help but smile at the eerie humor. As I tossed the line and started the engine, she opened the flare gun. I steered the tug in reverse while she loaded and fired directly at the stern of the boat. Amazingly, she hit it right on the first try. There was no explosion. The fire spread slowly from the stern to the bow. We were about 30 meters away from the vessel when it was fully engulfed in flames. A while later, 2 muffled explosions were followed by a lot of smoke. By that time, it was dark, and it was hard to see anything clearly. "Hi, my name is Sky. What's your name?" 10 minutes later, after a brief introductory conversation, my new companion was sound asleep. While I chatted, she had dozed off. That was fine because I needed to focus a bit to get back to the main conversation. I had no idea what was happening, but I felt it might be important to put some distance between us and the smoldering wreck that had once been an untouched cabin cruiser. Nighttime cruises are very relaxing, even though you have to pay a bit more attention to what you're doing. At the time, I was a little on edge due to the circumstances, so the calm atmosphere was relaxing but not sleep-inducing. I managed to drape a light blanket over my guest without waking her. She was dressed inappropriately for the situation. When the sun rose, I found a nice quiet spot to pull off the root. As the coffee started brewing, my guest poked her head through the hatch. "Good morning, Doug. Sorry for falling asleep last night. The coffee smells wonderful. Where the heck are we? Where's the bathroom?" It turned out she liked to talk. I tossed her a t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants. Given the circumstances, it was the best I could do. 5 minutes later, we were both comfortably settled on the deck with steaming cups of coffee in hand. The t-shirt was a bit big on her, but the sweatpants, which were too long, seemed to fit her hips quite well. "So, Miss Sky, could you explain to me what the heck is going on, or is it none of my business?" "Actually, my name is Mrs. Daniel Cordell. I've been married for only 6 weeks, and it looks like it's already over. I take it the boat you left behind belonged to your husband? Yes. It was quite a sight, wasn't it? I assume you had a pretty good reason for doing what you did. Absolutely. The movement through the channel was slow, but it was pleasant just to sit in silence and watch the passing ships. I refilled both mugs, and we sat for a few more minutes in quiet. I wanted to know more, but I didn't want to seem too nosy. I decided to let events unfold on their own. Doug, do you mind if I call my father? I don't want him to worry about me. No problem. I have a few things to take care of. Take your time. Of course, most of the things I had to do were somewhat superficial. I did manage to figure out exactly where we were and updated the fuel and water consumption logs. A good 20 minutes passed before my uninvited guest raised her head. Doug, if you're not too busy, my father would like to talk to you. Do you mind? She handed me the phone and ducked back below. Hello. I thought that was a pretty clever opening. Mr. Martin, my name is Franklin Graves. I'm Sky's father. My daughter has gotten into a bit of trouble, and I'd like to ask you for a small favor. Go ahead. Could you keep my little girl on board for a few days while I sort out some matters? I'll make sure you're appropriately compensated for the inconvenience. I'm afraid my boat is quite small, Mr. Graves. I don't think she'll be very comfortable. I don't want her to be comfortable. I want her to be safe. Safe? You don't even know me. How can you consider it safe to leave your daughter with a stranger? It's the best alternative I have. Besides, it was her idea, not mine. Sorry, that's not going to happen. I'll take her to Yorktown. Make arrangements for her to be picked up there. I'll call you back later this evening. Please let me speak with Sky again. I spent the next hour trying to figure out why the name Franklin Graves sounded familiar while my passenger figured out how to use the compact shower. Of course, she used too much water. I needed to talk to her about this. I was still wondering why she was taking so long when she called out, Doug, breakfast is ready. I hadn't expected anything like that, so I was pleasantly surprised to see a plate with a hot omelet and ham. I was impressed by how easily she navigated the kitchen. It was quite tasty. We didn't talk much while eating. After quickly tidying up, we returned to the cockpit and sat down again with fresh coffee. Why did you refuse my father, Doug? Very few people say no to my father. Your father doesn't know me, and I don't know you. I didn't like what he suggested. I'd rather just drop you off somewhere than get involved in something that's none of my business. My father said the same thing, but I told him that I feel safe with you and would prefer to stay with you if possible. Why would you say something like that? I'm good at reading people. Okay. Tell me about your husband. Daniel was my father's choice. It was a mistake. I told my father, but he didn't listen. Now I'm in a difficult situation, and the only way out is to ask my father for help. Doug, I make a lot of mistakes. I hate going back to my father again. It's unfair to him. He tried hard to raise me responsibly, but I keep letting him down. I need help, but right now, I also need to get out of this mess. I secured all the lines and took the helm. Within 5 minutes, we were leisurely heading south. I returned to the channel and relaxed a bit while Sky sat quietly in the cabin. 2 hours later, her cell phone rang again. She handed it to me. All right, Mr. Martin. I have no more reasons not to trust you with my daughter. It took a couple of hours, but you've done well. I regret your family issues, but you seem to handle them well. Can you be in Yorktown by tomorrow? It took me a moment to process what he was saying. I'm not slow, but I'm a bit cautious. Mr. Martin? Are you there, Mr. Martin? Yes, I'm still here. I just need time to think. Take your time. Do you think you can be in Yorktown tomorrow? If so, dock at Wormley Creek Marina. I'll have someone meet you there. If someone is going to meet us there, why can't she just go with them? I don't quite understand. Mr. Martin, I understand you have a planned trip along the coast. I don't want to interfere with your journey, but I would like you to take Sky with you for a week or so. Think of it as an interesting diversion. Mr. Graves, I'm not prepared to take on guests, and your daughter doesn't have any clothes or personal items for such a trip. Everything will be taken care of tomorrow. Don't worry about that. May I speak to my daughter, please? It was almost noon when we docked at Wormley Creek Marina. Waiting for us were a middle-aged man in a suit and a woman in her 20s, dressed in what appeared to be sportswear. Skye waved to the pair as we disembarked. It was clear she knew the woman well. We joined them at an outdoor table overlooking the docks. Mr. Martin, my name is Marshall, and this is Miss Templeton. We'll try to make this meeting as brief as possible. Why? I have plenty of time. No need to rush on my account. Can I get a cold beer? I noticed Skye chuckled slightly when I said that. Marshall opened a briefcase that was on the chair next to him and pulled out several thick paper folders. I groaned slightly at the sight of them, and he noticed. Apologies, Mr. Martin. Just a few minor formalities. I'm afraid I have to interrupt for a moment, announced Miss Templeton. Skye and I need to take care of some business. We'll be back in about an hour. Enjoy yourselves, have lunch. We'll see you soon. Take your time. Marshall seemed a bit embarrassed by her casualness, but I found it refreshing. Over the next 30 minutes, Marshall talked a lot of nonsense. New cell phones, special credit cards, and a small bundle of cash. I got a bit confused when he presented medical power of attorney forms. Since she was only going to be with me for a week or so, I didn't see the need for them. He emphasized that it was just a precaution and nothing to worry about. The situation had gone too far, and I started to get concerned. Sighing in frustration, I insisted on another beer and a snack. He agreed. It seemed very strange to me that I wasn't getting any background or information about the situation beyond what I already knew. Skye was an unhappy newlywed who had argued with her husband and decided to run away. In the process, she had successfully destroyed a yacht worth $500,000 for no apparent reason. Now her daddy wanted me to look after her for what seemed like an indefinite period. I knew nothing about this girl except that she was a spoiled brat. Only a fool would even consider this. Marshall and I finished lunch and had a few more beers before the girls returned. They brought armloads of what I assumed was suitable clothing and quickly started unpacking it in the cabin. That's when things got serious. In addition to the unlimited credit cards, Marshall mentioned the amount of money her father was willing to pay for my services and even opened a special bank account in my name. Deposits would be made monthly as long as I stayed with her. What the heck happened to a week or so? Overnight, someone, definitely not me, decided that this arrangement would be long-term and didn't even think it important enough to discuss with me. Naturally, I got angry. Before I could fully express my frustration, Marshall showed me a copy of the first bank deposit. The amount was, to say the least, staggering. No matter how angry I was, I couldn't refuse. Mr. Marshall, I don't want to seem ungrateful, but could you give me an idea of what kind of time frame we're talking about? He just shrugged. Marshall and Miss Templeton left shortly afterward. I thought it was amusing when Marshall handed me the bill for lunch and the bar. Heck, I had so much money now that I didn't care. I was getting ready to leave and looked at my new charge. Lucy, you have a lot of explaining to do, she giggled at my horrible Desi Arnaz accent. We left the marina and headed south, toward the English Channel, finding a cozy, quiet cove to settle in for the rest of the day. Neither of us was hungry, so we just snacked and drank beer. Skye's family was incredibly wealthy from real estate. Very old money, and quite a lot of it. Her husband, Daniel, came from new money, mostly from Wall Street. She didn't know much about what his family did, but she knew they were richer than her father. She didn't know him very well, and it was almost a marriage of convenience. I gave her a strange look when she said that, and she groaned in response. Skye had only been married for 6 weeks when her husband decided it would be fun to share his wife with some fraternity brothers. He thought that Chris Craft would be a great place for the party. Things didn't go as he planned. Her father was in the process of getting the marriage annulled. From Miss Templeton, she learned that Daniel was furious. Not only had she embarrassed him in front of his fraternity brothers, but she had also destroyed the yacht, which was the pride of the family. His family was angry with Daniel, and his friends laughed at him. He had publicly vowed to get revenge at any cost, and that's why her father was as concerned as she was. No one knew what kind of revenge he had in mind, but her father didn't want to take any chances. The tugboat was getting a bit cramped. A new body and a whole bunch of new clothes significantly reduced the amount of storage space. What was once a comfortable living space had become less so. Sky had some boating experience from her childhood, so she wasn't entirely useless. Together, we found the simplest and most efficient ways to get things done. I was impressed by how well we worked together. She willingly took on tasks related to keeping the tug clean, while I focused on mechanical and operational issues. She enjoyed planning meals and cooking. We established a regular schedule for shopping and laundry during our refueling stops. Normally, I wouldn't spend money on laundry services, but this was not a normal situation, so we splurged. We didn't cover many miles, but we were having a good time and enjoying the journey. I was living in the moment and relishing it. All thoughts of my previous problems quickly faded. Then I made the mistake of deciding to call my son. "Robert, it's Dad. I just thought I'd update you on my status and see how things are at home." Just in time. It's been almost 3 months. "What the heck have you been up to?" "Just cruising and relaxing. Everything's perfect on my end." "What's happening in Pennsylvania?" "For starters, Mom is furious. You sorted everything out and left her fairly well off before you left. She called here several times and eventually stopped when I convinced her that we had no idea where you were. However, she knows about the boat. Some documents were accidentally sent to the old address, and she quickly figured things out. It was bound to come out sooner or later. What is she doing about it? I don't know. However, she and the bank have been trying to sort it out. It seems that with the mortgage and the home renovation loan, she can't keep up with the payments. Heck, she can't even afford the utility bills. What's she planning to do? She got a job at Target, but it doesn't pay much, and she's not even working 40 hours. She's selling off things to make ends meet. Of course, your stuff went first. I should have grabbed the tools, but I was too late. I thought her new boyfriend would be helping her with the expenses. Is that a joke? As far as I can tell, even with his pension, he can't afford to support himself, let alone her. Speaking of good old Calvin, he is really mad at you. In fact, I think he's trying to find you. Mom mentioned the word revenge. Damn, I didn't think of that. He was supposed to feel remorse, not seek revenge. If you mean Hector's visit to him, I don't think it went as you guys planned. Have you spoken to Hector? No. What the heck are you talking about? Hector was just supposed to rough him up a bit. Sorry, Dad, but it didn't end that way. Apparently, Calvin has a black belt in some martial art. I guess Hector didn't know that, and Calvin ended up beating him within an inch of his life. Hector was lucky to get out of there alive. Well, that wasn't part of the plan. Anyway, that's why Calvin is trying to find you. According to Mom, he's mad as hell and intends to make you pay dearly. I think he's trying to track your phone. I keep it turned off most of the time. Thanks for the update. I'll call you back in about 2 weeks. In the meantime, don't worry about me. I'm fine. I hung up and saw Sky sitting and smiling at me. That's when I realized I hadn't mentioned to my son that I had a shipmate. Oh my God, Doug. It looks like we have 2 angry guys trying to track us down. Daniel too? According to my father, Daniel took an extended leave from work and is determined to find me and make me pay for disrespecting him and his family. What the heck does his family have to do with any of this? Daniel believes that by destroying the Cordell yacht, I insulted both him and his family. He feels he has to get revenge to save face. My father is trying to find out more, but Daniel has disappeared. Is Daniel prone to violence? As far as I know, he has been arrested at least 3 times for assault, but his father settled all the complaints before they went to court. I feel like someone just put a target on both our backs. Doug, I'd love a cold beer and a hot pizza tonight. Are we near anywhere? Within 10 minutes, we were on our way. The pizza was delicious, but the beer was even better. After living together in close quarters for several months, Sky and I became much closer. It was a platonic relationship, but it worked for both of us. The 15-year age difference helped suppress many natural sexual desires. Strangely, this issue never came up. We just considered our daily interactions normal. We enjoyed our evening beers but never overindulged. It was more like a father-daughter relationship. I don't think either of us thought of it as anything more. I felt uneasy knowing that two men were trying to find us. Both seemed to have serious grievances, or at least that's what I thought. I didn't know what to do but felt I had to do something. I called Sky's ex-husband. The annulment had been finalized a month ago. "Daniel, how's it going? This is Doug, the guy who took your wife." A short string of curses followed, ending with a terse question. "Where are you, you miserable son of a bitch? Sooner or later, I will find you." "Relax, Danny. I decided it's time for us to meet. How soon can you get to Savannah?" "Tomorrow." "Is that soon enough for you?" "I was thinking Saturday morning." "You'll have a couple of days to prepare. I'll call you tomorrow and let you know the time and place." "I'll be waiting." I didn't respond and just ended the call. "You're not actually going to meet him, are you? This man is crazy and dangerous. He'll probably bring a gun." Sky was seriously worried, and I was touched. "I'm working on it. Let me check something, and then I'll call again." A quick internet search gave me the information I needed. It wasn't difficult to find Calvin's cell phone number to complete my plan. "Calvin, my friend. This is Doug Graves. I've got a new pair of dancing shoes, and I'm dying to try them out. Are you interested? You know damn well I am. Where the hell have you been? This time, you won't get away. I'm not trying to run. We need to talk. It seems you need an attitude adjustment, and I'm the guy who can do it. Your buddy Hector tried that. How did it go for him? Can you be in Savannah by Friday morning? I'm already halfway there." "Good. Meet me at 10 a.m. at the food court in the mall. Come alone and, most importantly, wear a red MAGA cap." "What's with the silly cap?" "Here's the thing. You wear the cap, and I'll show up. Without the cap, you'll never see me. If I'm going to kick your ass, I want to make sure it's you. You're a funny guy. I'll be there. You better show up." Sky laughed like crazy when I finished the call. "You're a silly old man. You don't know anything about karate, do you? You're just going to get crushed." I just laughed and shrugged. We relaxed, admired the sunset, and had a beer. Life was good. I made one more call before we went to bed. "Danny, baby, it's Doug. I just thought I'd call you to arrange our meeting. It's Daniel, and you can kiss my ass. No one calls me Danny. I'm nearing the Georgia border. Where are we meeting?" "We'll meet on Friday at 10 a.m. in the food court of the mall. I'll be wearing a red cap and dancing shoes." "Why should I care about your shoes?" "Because I'm going to kick your sorry little ass." I didn't hear the rest because I turned off the phone. All I heard was Sky giggling again. She really giggled a lot. A few hours later, we safely docked at Freeport Marina. We completed all our usual maintenance tasks and had an excellent dinner of crab cake. The sky was a bit cloudy, so I was glad we had reached a safe harbor. By the time we got back to the boat, the storm was almost upon us. We quickly double-checked all our moorings and ensured everything was secured before locking up for the night. I still slept in the main bunk, while Sky slept in one of the bunks in the galley. A few hours later, the storm intensified. The combination of lightning, thunder, and wind was too much for my stowaway, and I found her crawling into bed with me. Neither of us said anything. By morning, the storm had subsided, and Sky was still sleeping quietly next to me. I quietly got up, leaving her there. About half an hour later, she came up for some fresh coffee. Nothing was said about the night. Since it was Friday, we decided to go to the breakfast club for a late breakfast. We had to wait a bit, but we managed to get a comfortable spot near the TV at the end of the counter. It was around 10:30 when the local news stations announced it. This morning, there was a shooting at the mall. An unidentified man in a red cap was shot in the food court of the mall for no apparent reason. The shooter refused to drop his weapon and was subsequently shot by mall security police. Both men were pronounced dead at the scene. Authorities are trying to determine their identities and the motives behind the altercation. It was a serious news bulletin, and I had to quickly pay our bill so we could leave the restaurant. Sky was barely containing herself. "You sly, dirty son of a bitch. You planned this from the start, didn't you?" She giggled again. "Of course not. How could you think that?" We spent the rest of the day relaxing and finishing all the beer we had. That night, we slept together again, but nothing happened between us. Early the next morning, the tug headed south while Sky was still asleep. That day, I decided to call Robert to check on how things were going at home. After a few minutes of friendly chatter, I had to ask the important question, "How's your mom doing?" "She's incredibly angry. Everything seems to be going wrong for her. She can't pay the bills and apparently hasn't seen her boyfriend in over a week. He told her he had some things to take care of and just left. She finally made a deal with the bank. They're going to take the house back. She signed and returned the divorce agreement. It seems she was happy with it." "What divorce agreement? Didn't you file for divorce?" "Hell no. Where and when could I have done that? I have no idea what you're talking about. All I know is that a guy came to the house with all the documents and a check for $20,000. She signed the papers, grabbed the check, and showed him the door. She thought you had filed." Robert and I talked a bit more about other things. He and his girlfriend were considering a Christmas wedding and wanted to know if I could attend. I assured him I'd do my best, and at the last moment, I asked him to include a +1 on the guest list. I wasn't sure how long I'd be with Sky, but I wanted to be prepared. Of course, I refused to answer any more questions prompted by that statement. I never commented on the disappearance of my wife's boyfriend. I ended the conversation just as Sky stumbled up the stairs, eager for some coffee. We spent 2 days in Jacksonville. Sky managed to find out that her father had arranged my divorce. When I asked her why he did that, she said it was because she had asked him to. I had a lot of questions about the legality of it all, but I decided not to bring them up. I also had many questions about why she did what she did. There had never been anything romantic between us. I had been extremely careful never to cross that line. Before I knew it, she had trapped me with her old, tired conversation. Did I think she was pretty? Did I think she was too young for me? Was I too old for her? Was I ashamed when people saw us together? It went on and on. It seemed she had developed feelings for me over the past couple of months. Of course, I was completely charmed by her, but I never even considered pursuing a relationship because of the age difference. For some reason, we had completely avoided any discussions like this before. Now, I felt uncomfortable. That night, I slept in the galley. When she came in the morning, I had already made coffee. She didn't look well rested. "Doug, I'm sorry for making things so complicated. I thought we were getting along well, and I hoped that if I pushed things a little, we could become closer. Maybe I overstepped. I need to talk to your father. Damn it. You're going to leave me, aren't you?" I tried, Doug. I really tried. Isn't there any way we can figure out how I can stay? It's not that, Sky. I don't want you to leave. I just don't know how I can keep living with you without getting too involved. I enjoy your company. I like being with you. It's the age difference, isn't it? I shrugged and nodded. We've already gone further than I think we should. I'm starting to feel like a dirty old man taking advantage of an innocent young girl. I don't want to feel that way, and I don't want your father to look at me like that. Doug, do you know why my father agreed to expedite your divorce? I wanted to ask you about that. Why did he do it in the first place? I kind of asked him if he could help somehow. I thought it would be important for you. I didn't know he actually did anything until you mentioned it. I hoped you would feel less guilty about our relationship if we got divorced. I think my father wants us to stay together. Why? I'm too old for you. You need a young, strong, healthy guy, not an old, worn-out oddball. I think he's looking for a way out. I've been an undisciplined child my whole life. I've only caused my father grief. He feels responsible for me, but I think he would prefer to pass the baton, so to speak, to someone else. He thought Daniel could tame me a bit, but he was wrong. By the way, Daniel was his choice, not mine. He hasn't even met me. Sky took the English muffins out of the toaster. We sat for a few minutes, watching the peanut butter melt into the hot nooks and crannies. The sky was clear, and the day promised to be beautiful. Everything was peaceful. I never tried to tame you. It took Sky's father only 10 minutes to dispel all my concerns about our relationship. He was very happy that I was even considering staying with her. It seemed everything fell into place, which I hadn't planned at all. The tug continued moving south at a good pace. I enjoyed having a bit more open water, but the little ship handled it well. Finally, Sky and I were able to consummate our relationship. I was amazed at my ability to handle the intensity. Luckily, after 3 days, things leveled out a bit, but she never fully calmed down. Robert told me that Connie had found out what happened to Calvin and was devastated. Given the circumstances, she realized that the money she received from the divorce settlement wouldn't last long. Since the divorce wasn't final yet, she hoped to make some changes. Fortunately, she still had no idea where I was or how to contact me. My plan to leave worked better than I expected. Sky and I weren't in a hurry, but we received a text message from her father asking us to meet him in Fort Lauderdale the following Saturday. He even provided GPS coordinates. We had plenty of time, so there was no need to rush. I tried to find clothes that I thought would be suitable for meeting Sky's father and discovered that most of my original clothes no longer fit. It seemed I had lost a lot of weight over the past few months. Most of the time, I wore shorts and swim trunks with an elastic waistband, so I hadn't noticed the difference. We made a quick stop in Delray Beach, and Sky had a great time picking out everything I might need. Of course, she bought a few new things for herself as well. We planned everything meticulously and arrived at our destination right on time. My lunch at the port with Franklin Graves went much better than I expected. He seemed not only genuinely happy to see us but also very grateful that I had grown close to his daughter. All my worries were unfounded. Sky was surprisingly quiet and stayed close to me. After lunch, he insisted we take a walk around the marina. The conversation was light and casual, but I had a feeling he had a specific purpose in mind. "Doug, what do you think about this?" We were standing in front of a brand new tugboat. Everything about it was perfect. He smiled like a cat as I examined it from the dock. Sky held my hand as I walked towards the stern. Unlike my tugboat, this one had a name. I smiled, and she squeezed my hand tightly, almost like a crazy person. We both stood there, looking at the Old English lettering on the stern, Alternative.
Thank you for listening until the end.